Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Some of my subscribers have asked for me to do an all-grain video, so that's what I've decided to do today. I'm going to show you how easy it is with some very basic tools and equipment, how to do an all-grain in your kitchen easily, although time-consuming. The equipment that we're going to need first off, or at least the first part today, is we're going to need a pot large enough to boil 5 gallons of water in. We're going to need a small pot enough to boil a gallon of water in. We're going to need a small container, and this is used to collect the first runnings of out of the mash tun. It'll be full of grains called Vorloff. We're going to need a colander. That's to do a fly sparge. I don't batch sparge. I don't have the equipment. Honestly, I don't think there's any difference. We need a spoon for stirring, a thermometer to check the temperatures, and we need a couple of small muslin bags they call hop socks. As far as the ingredients go, we need hops. Now these are English Fuggles hops. Alpha acid content is 5.4%. And the yeast that we're going to be using today is Nottingham yeast. Since we're making an English style beer, we're using all English ingredients. And this constitutes the entire bulk of the grains, known as the grain bill. In this bag is 8 pounds of marris otter English base malts, 1 pound of carafoam. That's simply maltodextrin. It's a non-fermentable sugar, just adds mouthfeel and body, head retention. And just as a little brush on the cheek for sweetness, we have 1/2 pound of caramunich. Now caramunich, if you can't get it, you can also use Crystal 40. Which is a little lighter in color and taste than the more popular Crystal 60. Now the first thing we have to do is we have to warm up the mash tun. Coolers are insulated. They keep things cold if they're cold, and they keep things hot if they're hot. So I have on the stove right now a gallon of water boiling in this pot. I'll add it to the mash tun. You guys can't see this. Okay. Close the lid, let that warm up for a little bit. Now let's talk strike water. Strike water is the water that you add to the warmed up mash tun before you add your grains to it. And when you want to do the mash, the temperature range that you want your mash at is anywhere between 152 and 156 degrees. What that does is the enzymes in the grains, when they reach that temperature, they start converting all the starches into sugar, and sugar makes the alcohol. So first thing we have to do is take a temperature reading of our grains. I've got them right here. This is real easy to do. You just take your thermometer, jam it into your grains, and the grains are coming out at 72 degrees. So how do you find out how warm or at what temperature you should heat your strike water up to add it to grains that are already 72 degrees to reach a final temperature of 152 to 156 degrees? Well, in my last Homebrew Wednesday video, I told you guys about brewheads.com. It's an online calculator. Tells you the alcohol content of your beers, the calories of your beers. It also has a strike water temperature calculator. So we're going to go up to my computer right now, do the calculators, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what brewheads.com looks like, and we're trying to calculate the temperature of our strike water for the mash. I've already got all the information punched in. Our target temperature for the mash is 155 degrees. The strike water volume is 2.5 gallons. Grain mass is 9.5 pounds. The current grain temperature is 72 degrees. Thermal loss of vessel, for degrees use 3 degrees Fahrenheit, which I did. The units are gallons and pounds. And it says temperature to heat strike water 172.4 degrees. We'll round that up to 173. Okay, and just checking, this is the IBU, or International Bitterness Unit calculators. We have mass is 1 ounce of Fuggle hops, alpha acid content 5.4% for a 60-minute boil. Another ounce of Fuggle hops at 30 minutes. A half ounce at 5 minutes. The final gravity is going to be 5 gallons, and the estimated, well, the final volume is 5 gallons, and the estimated gravity is going to be 1.040. And if this batch attenuates down to 1.00, it'll be 5% alcohol. You can see down at the bottom of your screen the Tinsith IBUs, which is usually considered more accurate for a full volume boil, is 45. The Ranger IBUs, which is considered more accurate for a partial volume boil, is 48. So between 45 and 48, this beer will not be astringent, but it'll definitely be a little more bitter than your standard Miller Genuine Draft or Budweiser. Alright, let's go back to the kitchen and get this started. Alright guys, now that we checked the calculators on brewheads.com, we found out that our target temperature is 155 degrees. There's 9.5 pounds of grain, 3 degrees thermal loss for the mash tun that we're using, and the strike water volume is 1 quart of water for every pound of grains. So if I had 10 pounds of grain, that would be 2.5 US gallons. I have 9.5 pounds of grains, but I'm still going to use 2.5 gallons of water. We found out that the target temperature for our strike water is 172.4 degrees. I'm going to round that up to 173 degrees. And the strike water has just reached that. So I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see what I do next. Stay with me. Okay guys, at this point in the process, we are going to first pour the strike water into the mash tun, and then we are going to mix in the grains in a process called doughing in. First, as you can see, the mash tun is warmed up. My manifold's in the bottom. Make sure that it's securely in place, and now we dump in the water. Okay, now that the strike water is in the mash tun, we will cut open the bag o' grains, and we will slowly add them to the mash tun. Now you want to do a little bit at a time, and stirring as you do so, making sure that you don't hit the manifold or knock it off, because if you do, well, the water's really hot and you're going to end up burning yourself. So taking your hands back in to reattach the manifold to the mash tun. We'll add a little more grain. stir that in as well. Okay, making sure that all the grains are wet. You don't want any dry grains, you don't want any clumps anywhere. Stir it up real good. Okay, as you can see, the consistency is kind of like watery oatmeal. It's because we have slightly more water than we're supposed to have in here, but that's okay. And we have a temperature, looks like 153 degrees, but I'm going to double check that with an electronic thermometer. And we have 152.6 degrees. It's a little on the low side for my taste, but perfectly acceptable. Now what we're going to do is keep the heat in. We will close the mash tun, and we will let this rest for, traditionally it's 45 to 60 minutes for the mash. I prefer a 90-minute mash because I just want to make sure that absolutely all the starch conversion has taken place. And after the 90 minutes, we'll do a simple starch test with some iodine, and pending the outcome of that, then we will sparge this, put it in the pot, and set it up for a 60-minute boil. Alright, be right back, guys.